You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. It turns out the recent motion by Daryl McDavid's attorney, seeking compensation of his client's legal fees totaling to $840,000, and following his acquittal has also served to expose the contents of some secret meetings held back in 2020. The transcripts whose private status was momentarily turned to public suggest that the prosecution did meet with the grand jury early in February 2020, and discuss strategies on how to make a joint indictment, where new witnesses and new charges could be introduced in the Chicago case against R. Kelly. During this secret meeting, a number of issues were discussed, and in the end, government lead prosecutor Angel Kroll did promise to bring 2 more witnesses to the list that would later put a seal on R. Kelly's verdict. While at the meeting, the prosecutor was pleased to introduce an additional witness under pseudonym Brittany, who she suggested had been Jane's friend and schoolmate that also had serious allegations against R. Kelly. According to her story narrated by Angel Kroll, she too met R. Kelly when she was underage, and claims the same things that allegedly happened to Jane did happen to her, and sometimes with Jane too involved at the mercy of the R&B King. She says, while according to Brittany this started in New York City, she also describes more multiple encounters when she was allegedly still under 18. And for this reason, Angel Kroll requested that she be added to her list. At trial, however, Brittany was a no-show, and until now, it's not been clearly communicated why she didn't turn up. One theory suggesting she was never called for a certain reason, and another being she deliberately made sure not to attend considering she could not handle it being used against R. Kelly, or to be remembered as one of the people that Sony used to take down the R&B King. In the wake of her failure to turn up at the trial to testify against R. Kelly like the grand jury had been promised, prosecution was rattled at the risk of losing the case, and did ask the jury to depend on Pauline's testimony and that by Jane, both of whom claimed had been involved with Brittany and Kelly at the same time. Pauline's testimony, however, came accompanied with yet another shocker, when she said that at the age of 20, she made an incognito call to R. Kelly's house claiming she was Brittany, and threatening the R&B King that she would go public about some personal issues she termed as wrongdoings if he didn't send her money. According to Pauline, while R. Kelly's camp calls this extortion, she terms it as "don't play with me." Pauline's interpretation of what she did as trivial left the entire courthouse wondering whether she understood what kind of legal problem she was risking. First extortion, then blackmail, and finally impersonation to defraud the R&B King. A fair judicial system wouldn't have gone another day without indicting Pauline herself, considering her action of blackmail is criminal and punishable by law. This, however, proved impossible considering the prosecution and jury were seemingly married together in a concerted effort to destroy the R&B King. The other potential witness Angel Kroll had promised the grand jury would show up at the Chicago trial, was renowned private investigator Jack Palladino, who unfortunately was killed in a botched robbery at his home in San Francisco. Before the trial date, according to reports, the 76-year-old fell and hit his head against the sidewalk while tussling with robbers, and he couldn't make it. Prosecution has hoped that his testimony would help to pin R. Kelly and Daryl McDavid on obstruction of justice charges. While at the secret meeting with the grand jury, lead prosecutor Angel Kroll attempted to frame R. Kelly and his co-accused McDavid, suggesting that together with private investigator Palladino at a meeting in Kansas, the three had offered to give Charles Freeman a sum of $100,000, along with compensation for his expenses if he helped them recover the tape for which he said had shown up with some people in Atlanta. As evidence to prove this, Freeman had a written agreement he claims he and Palladino had signed in August 2001, promising the $100,000 for Freeman if he recovered the said tape. In an effort to show that the evidence had been legally acquired, Angel Kroll went on to explain that this contract had been obtained from Palladino when subpoenaed, and considering he was a lawyer who knew how things go, he obliged. Considering he could not make it to the trial date Palladino, there is no way to prove if the prosecutor's statement on how the evidence was obtained was 100% accurate. However, it looks like Angel Kroll's no-show private investigator for reasons explained was not giving documents to the prosecution alone, if at all he did. At the Chicago trial, Daryl McDavid's attorney did present some of Palladino's memos that referred to Charles Freeman as an extortionist more than a partner. They were also able to share other records showing that Palladino traveled alone to Kansas, and not with Daryl McDavid like Freeman had attempted to portray. In the end, what prosecution had hoped would be the smoking gun was quickly neutralized by the defense counter-evidence. These two witnesses, Brittany and Jack Palladino, that prosecutor Angel Kroll had promised the grand jury in the secret meeting, were finally ruled out as absent at the Chicago trial. But prosecution's attempts to misrepresent them, suggesting what they could have been largely about, said or not said, did appear like potential prejudice against the R&B king, who was tasked to defend himself from imaginary claims by non-existent witnesses. According to Ray Johnson, undoubtedly, the government prosecutors on this case and judges simply don't want to hear the truth. They prefer to hear that R. Kelly is guilty than innocent, and that's why they were quick to determine him guilty, even when two prosecution witnesses failed to turn up, and another determined to have lied about her age on the stand. It makes me question who they could be working for. According to Steve, I am finding it hard to believe that Freeman was more than willing to take advantage of Palladino's departure, in order to give false testimony at the Chicago trial. Perhaps as McDavid's lawyers had not moved ahead one step to obtain sections of Palladino's memos, maybe the story would have been different. In all, we thank God for R. Kelly's life and freedom yet to come. According to Brenda Jones, why is R. Kelly still being held after these people were caught in lies time and again? Evidently, they extorted him and are still stealing from him. I can't believe the system has gotten to the point of holding people who have clearly been lied on. For sure, now I see there must be many innocent people in prison who didn't even commit any crimes. How can this corruption keep going on and nobody doing nothing about it? People can't just come out of the prison system after seeing so many terrible things and get back to normalcy out here. Their lives are messed up, especially after witnessing things that they shouldn't even be around because they're being held against their will. That's still like slavery in a sense. Take away their freedom and use them to do whatever you want in prison, when in the real sense they shouldn't be there because they didn't do anything wrong after all. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.